Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Shima Beigi, and I am the author of Mindful Smart Cities. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about my book and how it is fostering Noospheric urban living. And so to start with, I thought that to put a little bit of like a roadmap for the presentation so that you know where are we heading in this I think 20 minutes that I will be speaking. The first, I would like to talk a little bit about myself and my why and my motivations and research at Human Energy Project. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the summary of the noosphere ideas. I know a lot of words being said this morning about noosphere, which are in parallel. And I'm very happy that they are basically this will be a reminder to what we just listened this morning. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about why we should go beyond the noosphere and what is the significance of this event, 100 years anniversary, the reasons, trends, and perils and opportunities that are ahead of us. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about Teilhard de Chardin and David Bohm, another great thinker, and how his thinking is actually actualizing the key ideas that are at the core of this conference. Then I'm going to talk about cities and the noosphere and exploring my book and how and the framework of my book very briefly. And last but not least, and I think I'm very excited for the last part of the presentation, which is going to be an exercise that is inspired by Persian mysticism of creating new futures together in spirit of this event that we are gathering. So a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Shima Beigi. I'm a research scientist. I'm also an author, founder, consultant, and entrepreneur. And the background of my research are inspired by mainly nonlinear systems and environmental engineering, where I did my most of my academic career, and chaos theory. And then my PhD, which was in about resilience of complex adaptive systems, which kind of like 70% of my thinking comes from that period of my life. And then 80% of my research, of course, these percentages are more kind of my own feelings that I put into them, are coming from mindfulness, contemplative practices, trauma work, and Persian Sufism and poetic literature, which is kind of an attempt to connect my own long journey of leaving my country of origin 20 years ago, Iran, going to England and staying there for 10 years, and then living to Belgium and being there. And having this experience of being exposed to different types of noospheric transmissions of different generations and experiencing traumas that were basically passed on by different generations, and being left with this task of basically overcoming those traumas and using them in a way as I can say, I think, fuel for transformation. So I use those basically background and those experiences in my book, in my work. And then also science and technology as a way of transforming our world. And I have a mission statement about smart cities, which I explain a little bit later and more in details when I go towards the presentation. I really believe that the current paradigms that we are having is very much technocentric. But unlike many others that tend to blame this technocentric vision, I really want to take the mindfulness perspective of thinking that this paradigm that we're facing in the tech domain requires a therapeutic journey. And my vision, therefore, is about healing these cities from their maladaptive thinking, which is connected to noosphere, and hopefully steer them towards becoming more sustainable and resilient places for everyone. So very briefly, my work at the Human Energy Project, you can scan them if you like. These are the publications that we did over the past few years. The first one is basically about the health of the noosphere. We published this in the Computational Sciences Conference about the science of noosphere and how we can develop better algorithmic technologies to ensure that the noosphere that we're living in, and we are expanding it, is healthier and is filled with better memes. Then we worked on collective consciousness to propose an idea that how we can use subjective experiences as a way of making studies of consciousness more mainstream. And then the part that is very relevant to today's many discussions is techno-social dilemma. This is I think our latest publication is a draft that is outside right now. And the further work that we have is coming with my colleagues. It's about the development of the third story. So, as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the noosphere. I know many of you know that the noosphere is a combination of two words coming from nous, meaning mind, and the sphere, which is kind of like this spherical space where we deposit our thinking. So the noosphere is this place that our global collective consciousness manifests, and also is an envelope of thinking that contains our belief systems and collective consciousness of all of our humanity and stories that builds this transcendental mental sphere that evolves beyond our individual thoughts. And then I think one of the great contributions of Theart was this transforming our symbolic relationship with thinking and the biosphere and geosphere, and making a continuity between human journey and the journey of planet, and also building a bridge between science and spirituality. But I think, and I believe, that the concept of noosphere as a sphere of thought is very limited in addressing global challenges that we are facing. So we really need to go beyond the noosphere and find ways that can help us to propose real action plans and roadmap in line with the spirit of noosphere. So here are some reasons that I think we should go beyond the noosphere. The first reason is that we are experiencing modern technological advancement, that through that we are becoming more and more interconnected, and we are also being exposed to others' systems of thoughts and thinking. So this is something beyond noosphere. Noosphere as a sphere of thought, I think will be moved and shifted to noosphere as a system of thought, as something systemic. Also, we are experiencing global cultural evolution and exposure to different cultures and ideas that I think it's very necessary to be integrated into the thinking of the noosphere and how we are moving ahead after this conference and after this event. I think to many is evident also that we are faced with climate change challenges and environmental interdependencies, that I think the concept of noosphere is a very fertile ground to cultivate sharing thinking. And then conflicts and the opposite of that, cooperation, how we can actually move from the current basically conflicted and fragmented relationships internationally to a more synergistic and cooperative sphere of being and thinking. And then last but not least, and something that I will be talking a little bit more later, is the concept of urbanization and collective living, that by 2050, more than 68% of the world populations are going to be living in cities. And as I explain later, cities are all about people, and this provides a very fertile ground for working in the changes of noosphere. And then also, if you have read Théoire de Chardin, you know that he spoke a lot about the concept of omega point, where all the complexities are heading towards. And I think we are just in this sphere of complexity where we are getting this chance of exploring the omega point and really thinking about how we can develop it in the direction that we want to go, that works for all of us. So we need to move from noosphere as a sphere of thought to noosphere as the sphere of dynamism and movement, aka relationships, a place where we actually deposit the stuff of our unconscious and conscious mind, and we get exposure to different kinds of substances that we carry within ourselves. So I couldn't think of anybody better than David Bohm in providing us some toolkits and some ideas about how to basically go into the noosphere and move beyond the surface of this sphere of thinking. So David Bohm in Wholeness and Implicate Order proposes that thoughts aren't just electrical activities in our heads, but also our systems. These are systems that we are cultivating within ourselves, and these systems allows us to look at the underlying order around us, as he calls the implicate order, which is cohesive. And based on the fragmentation we have and we carry within ourselves, we extract order from the implicate order and the harmonious order, and we propose ideas about the world that are not necessarily reflection of the world, but are actually the result of fragmentation within. So what we see outside necessarily is not the reality, but it's a result of the fragmentation we carry within ourselves. So the nature of reality, David Bohm suggests that it's hollow movement, meaning that these interconnected parts, interconnected parts move together in harmony with each other, which creates an unbreakable wholeness in flowing movement. And I think it's very in line with the thinking of Teilhard de Chardin that he says we are the countless centers of one and the same sphere. So I believe when we meet these two great minds today, like in 100 years anniversary, we can say that thinking is not, our thoughts are not just an island, and we have to go beyond our thinking and contextualizing our thinking as some sort of a continuation of the way we are and thinking about the impact of our thinking. So David Bohm suggests the illusionary perception is the result, is the manifestation of fragmentation that we see in the world is a result of illusionary perception. And this is a root cause of all the fragmentation we see in design of systems and also in the world and conflicts that we are seeing in the world. So I believe that if we connect these two thoughts, we will get a really inside-out view of this sphere of thought, and we recognize ourselves as some active participants continuously contributing to the formation of noosphere. And we can ask ourselves how our internal worldviews contribute to the fragmentation or cohesion of the noosphere. And I also believe that David Bohm, with this illusionary perception and then meeting these two thinking together, provides us a way to kind of think about sustainable development. As you know, 17 sustainability goals, goal number 17 is basically a noospheric goal because it requires us to collaborate together to address the challenges that sustainability tries to solve. So I believe that with connecting these two thinkings, we can foster a mutually enhancing human-earth relationship. So I think the 100 years anniversary is really an invitation for us to recognize our part-whole or mereologic relationships. If you want to think about the logic relationship we have with the whole, and therefore is a way of science meeting spirituality. And now I want to move to the how we can do this work of basically addressing the fragmentation. I think cities provide really a best lab for this experimentation because, as I mentioned, 68 of world populations are going to live in cities. So think about cities as some sort of noospheric engines that are continuously contributing to crystallization of noosphere. So I believe that cities are inherently noospheric. When we look at the history of cities and how they have formed, we see that we have moved from hunter-gatherer societies toward agricultural societies, and the Industrial Revolution happened. Then small towns and villages, small villages and towns emerged, and then now we are at the modern urban era. At the background, I see this noospheric folding happens. Noospheric folding was a concept that Teilhard de Chardin introduced in his book, that after a critical mass of interconnectivity, the noosphere begins to fold on itself and begins to have this reflective threshold where it can observe itself. And I believe that cities are basically that underlying force that he also calls this force of noogenesis that leads to formation of noosphere and also a self-reflective noosphere. So I think I really want to, I want you to basically take away from this conversation is to think of cities as some sort of a portal that help us to look at the inner working of the noosphere. So cities are told that are engines of innovation. This is a very popular article by Jeffrey West and his colleague that was published, that basically cities are serving as hubs of human activity, innovation, and cultural exchange. So basically, the more complex and interconnected cities get, the better basically they become attractive, and the more powerful they become in attracting talents. And the talents, as you know, are basically sources of propagation of ideas and thoughts, which makes me basically say that cities are actually engines of the noosphere, because they are places where knowledge and innovation happens. Cities are places where most of the institutions, research institutions and cultural hubs are connected, and they attract many basically talented people, and people that are searching for new ideas come to cities. They're places where innovation happens. They're also they're places where ideas are basically shared. And at the core of noosphere, I think, is the idea of we are sharing ideas. And I think cities are, as I mentioned, are really potent places that would help us to look into the noosphere. And with technology as well, and the concept of smart cities, of course, leading to formation of an another sphere, infosphere, suggested by Floridi, that basically makes us more capable of exponentially sharing our thoughts. So this is another way of looking how cities are actually contributing to propagation of noosphere. And also, I want to say noosphere inherits what we cultivate in cities. So there is this bidirectional relationship between cities and the noosphere. And that's why I think it's very powerful looking at cities and as a way of healing the noosphere and making noosphere better capable of basically serving us. So I want to say that cities are actually portals to the inner world of the noosphere. So now my book, Mindful Smart Cities, born out of these ideas, of course, and also out of a frustration that I just saw all this research that published about cities are looking at technologies as a way of solving our problems without really addressing the underlying problem of fragmentation of our own system of thinking, and as basically not including humans as a part of the problem and solution space. So my book provides a non-fragmentary worldview into design of cities as a manifestation of the noospheric crystallization of thoughts into being. My book has 7 basically layered therapeutic toolkit. Today, I think it's just beyond this time to talk about all the layers. I'm going to talk very briefly about different section of the book. And with this toolkit, my attempt is to basically look at the inception and design and delivery of smart cities right now and how we can change them. So without blaming, of course, I think this is very important to really withdraw from, well, saying that the big tech is problem, looking at the big tech as kind of like someone that inherited a different kind of noosphere that is not working for us. So basically addressing the fragmentation of thinking by adopting interdisciplinary models and new cognitive models, looking at the limited views of intelligence that we have in the smart city domain. So most of the smart city solutions think about smart as something that is basically enabled by AI or ICT or sensory systems without really looking at the underlying basically reservoir of wisdom that exists within societies and cultures and I think human basically story. So I try to integrate those ancient intelligences into the design, and then also providing a vision and a statement for the direction of smart cities. And then system of thinking, changing the system of thinking, looking at, instead of just thinking that smart can come from technological solutions, we can reframe that and by saying that smart can also come from soft solutions such as kindness, compassion, or togetherness. Just again, like Jane Jacobs said, we expect too much of our building and too little of ourselves. I really think we expect too much of technology and very little of ourselves. So I think this is a framework that invites us to go on an internal transformation. And for that, I propose this idea of triple AI model, which basically expand the notion of smart and as looking at awakening individuals to their role, looking at ancient intelligence that exists around us in different cultures, and also integrating artificial intelligence in that dialogue. So who is an awakened individual? Someone like you in this conference that is thinking of himself, itself, or herself as a part of a basically problem space at the same time as a solution. So it's basically you become a solution, we become solutions. And then ancient intelligence, looking at the reservoir of ancient civilizations and then rituals, modernizing them and then using them as some sort of fundamental message, as their fundamental messages, as some sort of like anchoring our technologies into reality and creating continuity between our world. Especially right now with the modern lifestyle, I really believe that tapping into these kind of stories, ancient stories, would allow us to not lose ourselves in the technology. And then, of course, looking at good artificial intelligence that are a group of technology scientists and heroes that are committed to basically creating win-win solutions for everyone. So I believe the process of building a smart city is really an internal work. I really believe in that. And that's why I am going to invite you to do an exercise with me together. So to do this internal work right now here. And also I believe that when we awaken to our power, we become the missing part of the dialogue of smart. So what is the outcome of this exercise? What is the outcome of this design toolkit? Is that I think that we need to have some sort of like a emotional signature of how it feels to live in a noospheric world. And I believe I can name many different emotions, but I think these are 5, I think, key emotional, I think, and states of consciousness, I believe, we can adopt in order to be more capable of providing better, I think, presence in the noosphere. Radical sense of awe, becoming more peaceful and calm and more grateful. Radical humility, we can become more curious and open to what is in front of us instead of assumption. Radical honesty, we can cultivate authentic relationality. Remember, I mentioned that we have to move beyond noosphere as a sphere of thought, but to noosphere as a sphere of relationship. And I think that authenticity is very important. And then radical patience. We develop compassion and trust, realizing we all are on this journey of transformation, and there has never been a part in the human story without these challenges. So we are part of this story, and these challenges actually make us capable of seeing our potential. And then radical self-reflection, which I want to invite you today, in that deconstructing the ego and then overcoming our sense of despair and then cultivating tolerance for what is uncomfortable and then how we can be together in this kind of formulation. So the world, that emotional signature would be a world that is more caring and conscious and aware and less in the state of fragmentation and despair. So I think I finished my talk. This is the whole concept that I wanted to share with you. Now is a kind of section of exercise. So this section is really inspired by Persian mysticism of Conference of the Birds, an ancient tale of mythical, basically, bird meeting birds of the world in answering their questions that they were looking for a king that can basically promise them a better world. So this hoopoe bird, this mythical bird, comes into these birds and they tells them that they need to go on a journey of 7 valleys. It's a very long journey, and the key to go on that journey is basically saying yes to that journey. And the story and the Conference of the Birds basically is about story of each of these birds doing this excavation within and then discovering all the excuses that they carry within themselves as a way of not living in that ideal future that they are imagining. So the story is about realistic utopias that are made of us transforming ourselves and really giving birth to that reality that we really desire. And I thought that I summarized this in this 7 valleys into 5 steps. And I wanted to basically share this with you and invite you to do this exercise with me. And then you can keep the answers for yourself. This is really a personal journey. And I would love to have you later if you want to share more of this, going deeper in this journey later. We can do it later after this conference or another time. But this is really an invitation. 100 years of anniversary of the noosphere. how can we step into really claiming our role and becoming more active participants? So this is the framework, a personal invitation to Noospheric urban living. There are 5 steps, starting from desires, and then moving to current reality, then going to story and excuse, then going to transformation part, and then going to the embodiment part. So I want to invite you to just look at this journey for maybe a few seconds. And then if you want to have pen and paper, if you want to do it on your phone, whatever format is comfortable for you, then really sitting quietly with this, each step, we do the first step first, I then kind of guide you into the next step. And then finally, we can wrap up by basically, if you want to share some of your experiences in this basically exercise. So the first step is about the desire or despair. So this kind of like 2 sides of the same, the kind of like yin and yang of what we want and at the same time what we don't want. What is we're really yearning toward, and at the same time what we are avoiding. So Attar, the author of Conference of the Birds, believes that this is basically a fertile space where there is so much light, at the same time there's so much darkness, and the basically goal is to identify the amount of light that is there, also the amount of darkness, and learn how to use that darkness in a way of moving towards more light. So the question of this first valley is what kind of world or city you want to live in. And the goal is really to connect with our hearts, because the Human Energy Project is about aligning human energies. I believe it's about aligning the energy of our minds and our psyche, energy of our hearts, our compassionate hearts, at the same time, the energy of our thinking, really refined thinking, not just cluttered thinking. And this is an exercise for basically aligning our energies. And the first is to align with our hearts. So really connect with this question of what kind of world or city you want to live in. When you came to this conference, what was your basically desires? If you just tap in that space of basically desiring what kind of world it is, like even a color, emotion, what it is, you can just capture it just for yourself. And then moving to the current reality, well, describe your current reality. Just what is your reality right now? Without any sugarcoating, without any extra interpretation, just look at the current reality that you are seeing. So addressing the fragmentation as well. That is connecting with your mind. Then the third step is to this question of why are you living in this reality, the reality that you just identified? What is the story in your mind? Or for example, everybody's doing this the way that they're doing. Everybody doing the same thing, so I'm doing the same thing. So just listen to the story, at the same time excuse that is within you, living within you, without really judging it. It's just a way of connecting with what it is on the way of change. And then feel your emotions, because it's very important to also feel where this story lives within your body. And the transformation part, identify your inner work, but by what has to go in order for your desire to become your reality. This is really about connecting with your, I think, the most refined self that is constantly evolving. And I think that is where our role steps in the kind of how we want to show up in the noosphere. The final stage is the stage of embodiment, meaning that, okay, we all identified all these steps, stories, excuses, we have them in ourselves, but there has to be a way to anchor that change in the real world. As I always say, when I wrote my book, another motivation was that I thought that there is no chance of changing the world by just going into the meditation cave and sitting on my own and just meditating, because ultimately you become so not stimulated what is in the world and so detached that is actually I think is not about how we can do transformative work. It's just being in the space of change, being in the space of discomfort, developing that capacity and I think internal competencies so we can sit with the discomfort of what has to change, and also being in the process. And as I mentioned, just being compassionate, that everybody is on that journey of transformation like the birds. They're moving into some sort of a desired destination, but they're not maybe have figured out how to do it. And I think by doing all this work together, I think we can create a bigger, basically, collective heart that we can basically develop a better noosphere. So thank you very much for listening. This was a pleasure to share with you some of the things that I really am passionate about. If you want to know more about what I do, you can just find my work by scanning this QR code. And if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot your questions. I would be very honored to have your questions if I can answer them. So I will. Thank you very much, and thank you.